Welcome back. Part 2. Wave sequencing, Wavestate, let's have fun. How does it work? Hi, my name is John. I'm cool. Hands together, head bowed. So I actually did this video I'm about to do last night at 3 in the morning, and I am not happy with how it turned out. Shock. So I'm doing it again, and there were certain things I missed that I wanted to include. So real quickly, this video is sponsored by my website, pluginguru.com. So if you need inspiring patches for your software sense, and now there's 2 libraries for Wavestate. So go to pluginguru.com to pick up Mega Magic Pads, Mega Magic Dreams, or the bundle, or any of the 80 libraries I've done for Omnisphere, Serum, Contact, Spire. The list is rather large of plugins I've supported with patches, all sorts of fun stuff to play with. So thank you for your business if you come to the website and become a part of the Plugin Guru family. I figured a good way to start this would be to do this. Let's look at where we came from. And let's play with the Wavestation for a minute, and then we'll take a look at Wavestate to see what has changed. It's different in a number of ways. Wavestation actually can be more complex in some respects. The spec was much larger. Hitting the edit button, you'll see you have 8 possible patches. And not only that, but every one of the patches, if you go in, can be up to 4 oscillators. So right there, the wave state is quite different. Its one performance is 4 layers. And one layer can be a wave sequence, or it can be a multi-sample. It's not 4 oscillators going through everything. So right there alone, it's been simplified. What happens with wave sequencing is completely different, because now everything is on its own separate category, and additional capabilities have been added that are really, really exciting. So let's get back to here. Check this out. So this is a patch that I made for the Wavestation back in the day. Let's see if I come over here and turn this on so it plays. I can still remember sitting in my little soundproof room at Korg in Canoga Park, when Korg used to have a distributing office in the West Coast. Now it's all in New York. And making these patches for, these are some of the option cards that came out for it. And this is 4 oscillators. If we go to one of these, we can hit wave sequence. And as you can see, what a wave sequence is it's literally a sequence of going from one waveform to another waveform to another waveform. And on the Wavestation, you had a duration, a crossfade, level, and the tuning. And that was it. And so you could have it so that it would be doing rhythmic things, or crossfading allows it to fade out one sound while it's fading in another sound, right? But it was just one lane. The sample, and then how long does it play that sample, and what happens sound-wise to that sample. That was it. So with that in mind, there's only so much you could do, especially when it comes to randomizing and getting into like unique kind of creative, giving the machine life kind of things. There's very little of that possible with the Wavestation, because it was just sequenced of what it's going to do. So that is quite different than the Wavestate, because now the timing of those steps for what it plays, here's your list, like the list mode would be your sample for one sound to another. The pitch of each one of those, the actual shape of it, whether it's got a certain envelope to the volume, which is different than when you click one of these little blocks, you see you have fade in and fade out now. So it has all sorts of very flexible control now that we didn't have in the Wavestation inside of Wavestate. Korg considers this Wave Sequence 2.0, and it makes perfect sense. And it really is 2.0 because instead of it just being a sequenced list of simple parameters, they are now separate lanes. And as you can see, you can hit the little plus button on each of these lanes to make them be a certain length. And then there's these little red checkboxes for controlling where it starts and stops and how it loops and so forth like that. You can have each lane be different lengths, and you can have it be random. There's so many cool places to go with this interpreted version of wave sequencing. It's much more thought out and robust, and a great update. And to be quite honest, 4 layers is more than enough to get a whole lot of stuff going on and run out of polyphony still, right? Because when you do wave sequencing, one thing to realize, when it's fading one sound out and it's fading another sound in, that's 2 notes of polyphony. The Wavestate has 64 voices to work with. Now, if you set it to where it's just playing multi-samples, it's no longer doing that multiplication of 2 voices. It's just playing a single stereo voice. So you do have that option for certain layers to work with, right? Like I said in the first video, the best way to learn any synthesizer, whether it's Omnisphere, Massive X, Serum, anything, is to go through the patches, play what's there. You will find all sorts of things that are gonna make you go, how's that happening? Hit the editor button and you can go in and see this 3rd layer is a multi-sample. 2nd layer is doing all the busy chuggy stuff. And A, I'm not sure what it's doing, so we can turn off B and C, and it's another busy thing. So we got 2 busy guys going. One doing synth waveforms and the other doing a rhythmic element. It's really cool to be strong and conceptual for what each layer is going to do. And then the 3rd layer is basically the underlying pad. Now, a couple things to point out. That there's this page of tabs right here that you can cycle through. The keyboard setup, as you can see, you have separate key zone and velocity zone for each of the 4 layers. So you can set them to be only playing in the certain part of the keyboard. In the case of this, that 3rd layer is stopping at B3. So play C4 and it doesn't make any sound. Okay. Now, as far as to what you have tool-wise inside of Wavestate, the heart is, of course, the oscillator. You have a very nice filter which has a number of different types. The MS-20 type of low-pass filter, high-pass filter. Poly 6 has a different basically, these different filters will have different characteristics to the resonance and the way the filter interacts sonically. You can play with all those, try them out. Probably the best way to test that out would be to go to a sound like this. I'm going to take the notes and say, and then play with it. Bring up the resonance. Hear that? That's going to be different than here. It's much tamer. But when you bring it all the way with high resonance, it really screams. Hear that? If you go to the Poly 6, it doesn't sound like that. So play with the different filter types. Each layer has its own arpeggiator, so you can have it on for one layer and off for the other layers, which is nice. So you can combine it with wave sequencing on other layers. There are effects, and the way to think of this is the first 3 effects, pre-effects, mod effects, and delay, those are independent and separate per each of the layers. So layer C can have its own pre-effect, mod effect, and delay settings. They all share the same common master reverb. So each of these layers, when you get to the pre-effects, this is where you're going to find guitar amplifier, there's decimator, graphic EQ, compressor, even the shaper, which can do like this. So there are sonic places to go, for sure. Then over here you have on the mod effects, modulation effects means chorus, phaser, flanger, things like that. So you can go interesting places sonically with the effects that they give you. The delay has both a tape type of a delay, BPM delays, modulated delays. And the way that the effects work is you have basically 3 parameters that are able to change specific parameters in the sound. If you hit edit, it will open up the full editor for that effect. And in some cases it's simple, in other cases it's a lot more complex with like EQ and so forth, depending on what the effect is. So you can see the effects this way and see all the parameters for the left and right channel for the delay and stuff, or turn off the edit buttons and just have access to more global parameters. There is master EQ, which is very nice to have. You do have knobs up here. They have a cool system for both that and for modulation, in that if you want, you can just go over here and hit the plus button to any parameter, and they have all sorts of modulation for the controls, the knobs, the generators, which is where you'll find the envelopes, the LFOs, the vector envelopes, all sorts of things. I should point out also that if you want, like say you want this to control the filter cutoff, if you click where it says master and drag, you can now say, I want this real-time knob to change filter cutoff, and then go down here to bring this up. And now as I bring up this knob, you'll see that it actually will show how this works. You can click right here to change the polarity to be bipolar, so it goes both directions, or just single polarity, so that it stops wherever this is at, and now it gives you range, but it doesn't go below that range value. So you click right here to toggle any of the knobs between bipolar and single polarity. There is a separate layer for every single one of the patches that can be set up for its own set of modulation controls, which is very powerful. Inside of Wavestate, there's a button right here that says Performance Mod Knobs. If you turn that off, now these knobs are controlling the layer modulation controls, and it actually sends a different set of MIDI CC numbers. So you can set these knobs up one way to control certain things in your setup. You can turn on the performance knob, and now they're controlling other things in your setup with a completely different set of MIDI CC numbers, which is nice. You have a layer right here, which will give you up to 6 dB of additional headroom, the key zone, velocity zone, the 4 LFOs. Click here to choose between all the different waveforms. You have offset, you have the curvature that you can change, which is nice. Change the phase of where it starts the LFO cycle. All sorts of really nice things for the LFOs. 4 envelopes, ADSR type envelopes, but they're very nice envelopes. And really cool is curvature over here, which lets you change the curvature of the shape of the attack, decay, and release. And the way it works is this. Let's see, let's get this back to no reverb. And get over here and turn off the delay and everybody I've got going on here. If you go to the envelope and you have the amp envelope and a long release, and you change the release curvature to 0, it's purely linear, which means it's strong for longer and then just immediately fades out. And as you bring this up to 10, it's going to make it seem shorter because it starts to fade out sooner, but it's perfectly natural and just beautiful. I love exponential more than linear. Linear is more like what you have on a lot of vintage synthesizers. Some modular gear, they love having their more linear shape. So if you want to have you can have it by just setting the release curve at 0. If you set it at 10, you have to have the release length longer to compensate for that. But now it fades out really naturally. So you have that for both all the segments that have a shape for the filter envelope, amp envelope, and the pitch envelope. Pitch envelope is great. You can get this to be really short. Really, really snappy. What's really cool is the velocity is a add, which means that you can have the intensity at 0. Velocity adds. I should point that out also for the filter cutoff. If you have this down and you have velocity added here, even though the cutoff is down and there's no intensity assigned to the envelope, velocity is still affecting it. So it works differently than a lot of synthesizers. I'm used to typically where you have an intensity and then the velocity gives you a range of that intensity. Doesn't work that way here. If you want something to be modulated by, say, velocity, it's really easy to use filter cutoff. When you select, as you see, any knob, you can go over here. I love under the controllers, there's two types of velocity. There's velocity, which is exponential velocity, has more of that long time in the lower values before it goes up to the higher values. I love how that plays. So be aware. So that's the basic engine inside of Wavestate for a patch. And with that, you can go through the patches realizing that and go, there's some cool stuff. There's cool stuff going on. So let's make a patch. Let's make something ourselves. If you go through the list at the very, very top of the list if you go over here by category, I think, yeah, at the top is init performance. Go to editor, and now it's initialized. It's playing a nice fading in, fading out between two sounds wave sequence, the init wave sequence. Just like I showed in the first video, you can click right here to just go through, I don't know how many wave sequences there are here, but what's cool is even all the Wavestation wave sequences are here. Some of these I made a long time ago, right? And then Wavestate is all the new ones, and you can see whether it's tempo or time-based. You can do drum grooves as well as harmonic things. Right? So, but we're not going to do that right now. But study them. It's a good place to study. So let's start with an init wave sequence. Again, you have control over here over the length of it. Whether it's a multi-sample, which is now that you have access to all of the samples inside of Wavestate. There are gigabytes of samples inside of the Wavestate. And they go all over the place. Waveforms, guitars, effects. A good way to see the list, actually, just to get a scope, is to set it to wave sequence and then click on sample, and it has this little list by category for everything. So you can see what all the pluck sounds are, what the perk sounds, what the key sounds. There's a ton to go through. The brass, tons of brass, all the cool brass from other synthesizers Korg released that people love are here. The woodwinds, the strings, and then user will be where your own samples will show up if you use Sample Builder to send in your own samples. These are all samples from Mega Magic Dreams, Mega Magic Pads. So they are listed here. I need a little drink. By the way, if you have a sweet tooth, like I have a bad sweet tooth, these Pure Squeeze are really good carbonated waters. Naturally, what are these? Naturally enhanced sparkling waters. You can get them at Costco. Awesome. So keeps you from drinking soda all day. So good way to, so anyway, if we go over here to the timing, this is the important one to play with. You have two different modes. You have time mode and tempo mode. Tempo mode is where you get a list of timing events to play with because it's going to be rhythmic. Whereas if you set it to, go back to timing and set it to time mode, now it's in a term of, I think, milliseconds and seconds. So you determine whether you want it to be 1 second. Right? And then here you have fade in and fade out. So the timing can be one set of parameters. Let's play with it being crossfade. Interesting sounds first. So click in these little tiny red lines. You can also just click timing and then go right here and drag like this for it to. Personally, I like time. I like to play with tempo things. So let's set a tempo mode. Now it's the 8th notes. So once you have a timing that you like, let's say I want to have this be, if you click and drag, let's add a couple more to this to make it even more interesting, shall we? We can go to the second lane for the samples, and let's choose a couple other samples. Another way to choose the samples that's really nice is instead of dragging, instead of clicking here and playing it with this way, you can go over here where it says multi-sample. And what's nice with this is you can choose a sound and it doesn't go away. So this list stays. Boys choir. Let's have this first one be. Right? And if you go over here to the timing lane, you'll notice that you have all sorts of parameters for the timing lane. So if you want, you could choose any of these to work with. Sample. If you want to play with the sample lane, there's a whole bunch of sample lanes to play with. So the ability to cross-pollinate from all these different lanes, go to pitch. One of my favorites is the shape lane, because with this, there's a parameter when you click shape that says shape controls volume. And what's really, really fun with this is that you can click and drag to change all sorts of different shapes. Doubles, triples, 4. So one lane can have a 4 volume pulse to it. Right? And again, if you click shape, right here you can go through all the The other thing that's really, really fun to play with is what's called probability. Every one of these parameters says random order set. If you go to any one of these and click it, like this one here, there's a probability knob you can bring down. And so I could have it where I'm doing a regular timing and a straight timing for the shape, right? And then take this and bring down the probability so it just happens every now and then. The places you can go are rather extensive. So there's wave sequence, where right here you can choose a complete wave sequence, or you can go in and mix and match, clicking on the different lanes here and seeing that there's presets to every single one. So you can make something from Frankenstein pieces from all sorts of different wave sequences. Or you can click right here and choose. So let's use that for layer A. Let's go to the effects. I want to put a delay on that. I want to open up here and choose a preset. And I want a phaser. So let's go over here and have a little phasing action going on. Flanger here, phaser. And then on top of this, I'm going to have a pad that's going to be made more traditionally. Let's go over here and say single multi-sample. Let's see, I'm going to use a pad. So we could say pad. And a whole bunch will show up. Both the plugin guru pads from Mega Magic pads are there, but you can also see some of those pads made it into the Wavestate because Korg licensed samples from me for Wavestates. So some of these are from different libraries, like Lost Coast and Klamath are from the Del Norte EDM Chill library, but something like Battle Bright is actually inside of, I call it Battleborn in Mega Magic pads, but it's different because they made it so it's mainly the loop only, whereas the version like here, the full original version has really cool attacks that are part of the sound. That's why there's a loop only version as well as those. Anyway, let's choose something like Sleeping Skeletons. Bring up some resonance. It gives everything a little nice crispness to it. Go to LFO. You want to say sync notes, so it plays them all in sync for what I want to do here. And then I turn on tempo sync and a exponential saw down. And then you can see the little yellow or the little orange dot. That's showing you the modulation that's happening from the LFO. And then I'm going to bring down the mixer. And I'm going to have the amp LFO give me a different tempo synced pulse of a 16th note. So let's say exponential down. Click here to say 16th notes. Bring up intensity. And maybe I want to force A to not be quite so sporadic. So let's also do this. Let's go to layer B, right click, and you can say copy LFO. Go to layer A, and for the amp, say paste LFO. And then bring this down, bring up the intensity. And that forces it to now kind of have a bit more of a defined tempo. And then for C, I'm going to use a program from Mega Magic Dreams because these are really cool attack sounds that hit and then fade out. And there's some really cool synth stuff from my modular over here. So let's use something like X-Ray. And then I want something that's slower, so let's use another Mega Magic Dreams patch. I like the where is Silky Res Fall. Let's take that down an octave. And let's maybe have this have a little bit of that pulse. So right click and say paste. And you also have access, as you can see, to the assignments of modulation right here. So and then I could keep going. There's so much more to do as far as like I could add EQ to give it a little bit more of a shape sonically. About right there. Maybe a little bit of reverb. That's kind of cool. Now, if I want to have like the modulation wheel do something cool, it's changing things right now in the wrong direction. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to hit the minus to get rid of exponential velocity and the mod. I don't want it to do that. But the pad over here on B, let's select the filter cutoff, add a modulation source, and then you just click where it says off and say mod wheel. And I'm going to go here and I want this to be positive on everybody. So that's better. And I also want the intensity to, you could go crazy with this, because if you select the modulation sources themselves, you can actually modulate this with the mod wheel too. So we could say, use the modulation wheel to take it down minus 57. So you say 57.72. So as I bring the mod wheel up, just leaves it open, so it's no longer filtered. Right? So it's very fun to play with. When you're done making a patch, you can save each of the layers as their own program by right-clicking. And that's the same for any of these lanes. If you want to save your own wave sequence lanes or other stuff I showed you, just right-click in these patch select boxes instead of left select. Left-click, you get the list, right? But if you right-click, you get the ability to save. But I want to save the performance. And what's cool with this is it saves everything without you having to save any presets. It will save it exactly the way it is right now. So you have two options. Since I started with init, I don't think I have access. I could say save performance, but I'm going to use save as a new performance. And my naming, I always like to say something at the beginning so I know what I'm looking at patch-wise. And into the beginning. Into the universe. Yeah, universe. And fun videos. Collection. There. Okay. And category, let's call it rhythm soft because there's rhythmic stuff to it. I could add notes if I wanted to. Hit save. Cool. So that's there's other places to play, of course, because everything can be assigned to control everything. Make sure that you read up on the track mod and mod process. These mod processors are really cool for quantizing LFOs to be stepped, or you want your mod wheel to be lagged so that it's slow to rise, and you can put an envelope on any kind of parameter. It's got a lot of cool capabilities with these different processing options to work with. Yeah, so that's what we wanted to take a look at here. Sample Builder. Do you want to spend some time with Sample Builder really quick? I probably should show you that really quick. So let's go over to Sample Builder. Come here, Sample Builder. This is where you load your own samples and map them, and then you can send them to the Wavestate. So if we go over here, we are in a new bank. So if we go over to the multi-sample page, the first thing you'd want to do is say import wave files and then have some wave files to import. Now I'm going to go to Bells and Winds. This is a library I haven't converted to Wavestate, but I will in the month of September. Let's do pan flute. These are really, really cool. One of the reverbed looped. So if I double click this, it will load it. You can see it has loop points because the wave file was saved with loop points. And it was also mapped so that G5. So we can call this wind pan. Okay. And for these, it's pluginguru.com. Keep it all business-like and category. You have all these categories you can assign to the sample. So woodwind. At this point, you want to go save multi-sample as, and it will give you that name. So now you can go to a folder, make a new folder so that you save the things of a certain category. Let's see, where do I want to save this? If I go desktop, I have a Bells and Winds folder. So I could say save. You probably want to put the samples into the same folder where you make the multi-sounds. I do think it will keep track of them in different locations, so you should still be okay. Now, at this point, I would want to go import another multi-sample, and let's go to that Bells and Winds and add the marimba, and we'll call this Bells and Winds and send. And what it does is it's removing the 1.3 gigabytes that were over in Wavestate from the Megamagic pads and Dreams libraries that I had sent over there. And it blew those out to put these in. So now I can go back to the Wavestate editor, load up the init patch, and go to the editor, change from wave sequence to single multi-sample, and then go to this list. And at the top of the list, there should be, right here, Bells and Winds as the collection, and there they are. So now I can go to envelopes. It'll be fun to do wave sequencing with Bells and Winds because these bell sounds and wind sounds are so very cool. Now, if I wanted to add these and Megamagic pads, because if you look at the Librarian list, all the patches still are listed for Megamagic Dreams and Megamagic pads. But the samples won't play because I sent over a new bank which erased the previous bank. So you'd go back to the sample builder and you'd use this option called add multi-samples. And I need to add that multi-samples from both of those libraries, from Megamagic Dreams and Megamagic pads. And so I'd first go to the samples here. And actually, I can just load them all. Since they're all in one folder, I can go down to here, all the way down to the bottom. I don't know why they're grayed out. They do this sometimes. But open. And now if I hit send, it will send all of them. It will take it here. We'll go over here and say stuff. And send. Now I'm going to fast forward or probably skip part of this because it takes it maybe 5 minutes to send this. So I'll pause the video and then we'll come back when it is done. So it's almost done. I've been enjoying a piece of red licorice. Love red licorice. So now it has sent both the Bells and Winds samples that we did, the 2 multi-sounds that I loaded, plus all of the Megamagic pads and Megamagic Dream patches. So I go over here to category or to collection. And here we go. Here's all the pads and they'll play the synth. And then here's the pads. So you can. I got an amazing email today from a customer that just bought Megamagic pads for Omnisphere. And like just raving about Spiteful Spirits. So pretty cool. Okay. Now you don't see those 2 Bells and Winds samples because there's no patch supporting them. So if I wanted to have those in here to be supported so I could call them up and play them, what you need to do is go init performance and go over to change to multi-sample. Go to the list, go to the very top, and go to collection. And you'll see Plugin Guru in here somewhere. Plugin Guru stuff, it's now called, right? And we should see wind pan flute. Let me quickly program this up just a little bit more. I'm gonna turn on the reverb. And then Command Shift S to save. Call this pan flute pad, just for fun. Save. Now I've made it a patch, so it will show up in the list. If I go up here and say, where's pan flute pad? There it is. So I can select it and play it. So when you transfer over the samples from Sample Builder, they don't show up as patches. They show up as samples that you need to turn into a patch. So go to the editor, start with the init patch, change it to be multi-sample, and now you can get to this multi-sample list and you'll find the samples that you sent over to play with, okay? There's not a lot of sample editing you can do with Sample Builder. You need to use DSP Quattro or some other sample editor of your choice to loop the samples, export the samples with loops if you have that ability. You do have separate volume for left and right channels, which is very nice, as well as tuning and the root pitch and so forth. But that's about it. You can one shot and boost it. So if it's a little soft sample wise, you can have it boost the level as well, which is nice. Double clicking on parameters pretty much everywhere inside of Wavestate will reset it to default parameters of whatever that was supposed to be the default set to, which is quite often the middle. There you go. So there's a ton to play with. Hours and hours of experimenting with wave sequences where everything is going all over the place in cool ways. And then just remember, you have access to the tools like LFOs and the arpeggiator and so forth to get it to have a timing value so it will work into your sequencer. I should point out one thing. Make sure on your Wavestate, you go to Utility, hold down Shift, go to, where is it at here? Right here, clock. Second dot on the panel, clock, you want to make sure that you set it either to auto or external if you want it to be synced to your sequencer, your DAW. Because internal, I believe, is what it calls up on by default. Maybe it does auto. But if you're having clock problems, that's one place to look to make sure that you have it set to auto for clock. So then it's able to listen to your DAW. Make sure your DAW is sending clock information to the Wavestate over USB MIDI, stuff like that. It's very fun to play with. I've had some good times with it, and it was really fun to make patches for it for support. So I hope this helps. Hope this gets you inspired. I'm going to do one more video in a bit. I need to take a break showing the libraries, the 2 libraries that I've made for Wavestate, so you can hear how they work just by themselves. Okay, so thanks for your time. Enjoy. See you later.